When I hear that the military is telling service people about the apocalypse and that that's a motivator for engaging with the enemy soldier, or when I hear stories of and see images of theologians and ministers blessing specific politicians in houses of political power, when I see that religion is being used to justify the way that certain politicians vote about certain things that lead to the oppression of innocents, or to read literal scripture and then justify conquest, I shudder at the thought of what religion is doing to so many people around the world. Because we are living in a history when religion must decide what it truly serves. Is it power or truth? Is it empire or is it God? And we're definitely living in those moments. We can see the rise of nationalism, nations posturing against each other, weapons being used to kill innocents and enemy soldiers. And although this happens throughout history, using scripture to justify or be invoked for these things, there is a voice in our world today that we claim came from the place of current conflict, the Middle East, to say clearly that he is the Prince of Peace. If we listen to the words of the prophet Isaiah that we heard earlier, he's not a cheerleader for war. He's not a priest blessing armies, but a man who dared to imagine a world beyond violence. He says in chapter 2, verse 4, "They shall beat their sword into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." It's not a prophecy of an endless conflict. It's a prophecy of the end of conflict. The biblical vision is not the triumph of one nation over another. It's the transformation of humanity from individual to community to nation to the entire world. But when Scripture is read only literally through a political lens, the deeper meaning disappears. We are cut off from the deeper symbolic meaning. Religion then has the potential for becoming dangerous at that point, because the letter of Scripture can always be bent to serve power, but the spirit of Scripture exposes power. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 says the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. When people cling only to the letter of Scripture, they often miss its divine purpose. Wars in the Old Testament become templates for modern war. Ancient tribal conflict becomes geopolitical roadmaps. Apocalyptic poetry becomes foreign policy. And suddenly the Bible is no longer a revelation of divine love. It becomes a justification of violence. But that is not the gospel of Jesus Christ. For we hear, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Not defeat them, not destroy them, love them. This teaching alone dismantles every attempt to turn Christianity into a war ideology. Because if Christ commands us to love our enemies, then no nation can be our permanent enemy. And no war can ever be holy or long-lasting. And yet today we see the failure of many religions, because Scripture is being read as though it were a military or political blueprint, or a roadmap for one's traditional or conservative or political values. Some read the prophets and see missiles. Some see Revelation and see geopolitical strategy. Some see modern nations as actors in ancient prophecies. And this kind of interpretation misunderstands the nature of the Bible itself. The Scriptures are not a newspaper of future wars. They are a spiritual map of the human soul. And this is where the teachings of Swedenborg are so profoundly important for our time. It gets us away from that literal reading of the text, the literal need to apply religious ideas to political ideology that divides us. Swedenborg asks us to look inward constantly, to think about what are you doing as an individual to be ambassadors of heaven on earth, to manifest heavenly goodness and truth here in the material world. And that's certainly not going to war